What if the ultimate goal of your life isn't to be happy, but to be dangerous, powerful, and entirely original? Society teaches us to seek comfort, fit in with the crowd, and avoid suffering at absolutely all costs. But the controversial 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed that this obsession with safety is exactly what makes us weak and miserable. He challenged us to undertake the ultimate human rebellion, the terrifying, lonely journey to become who you are. This is not a gentle self-care routine. It is a ruthless psychological war against your own limitations and the expectations of the modern world. When Nietzsche famously declared that God is dead, he wasn't just making a statement about religion. He was warning us about a massive upcoming crisis of meaning. In our modern era, the traditional structures that used to give people purpose have slowly collapsed, leaving a terrifying void in our society. We try to fill this emptiness with mindless scrolling, excessive consumerism, and the desperate pursuit of digital validation. But Nietzsche understood that without a higher structure, we are left floating in a sea of modern nihilism, where nothing seems to matter anymore. This void is exactly why so many people today feel exhausted, anxious, and deeply disconnected from their own lives.
To escape this terrifying emptiness, most people blindly surrender to what Nietzsche called the herd mentality. It is deeply ingrained in our biology to seek the safety of the crowd, adopting the popular opinions and acceptable behaviors of the current culture. If you look at social media today, you see millions of people terrified of being canceled or standing out, so they simply echo whatever the algorithm promotes. The herd offers absolute safety and comfort, but it demands that you completely sacrifice your individuality and your critical thinking in return. Staying in the herd guarantees a peaceful, easy life, but it absolutely guarantees a mediocre one. We live in the most comfortable, convenient period in human history, yet we are arguably more emotionally fragile than ever before. We can order food with a tap, entertain ourselves endlessly, and avoid almost all physical and psychological discomfort without leaving the house. Nietzsche warned that when you eliminate struggle, you eliminate the very friction required to build human greatness and resilience. A life optimized only for comfort turns you into what he called the last man, a cynical, unmotivated creature who only blinks at the screen and consumes. True potential is never forged on a comfortable couch. It is forged in the fires of voluntary struggle and intense difficulty.
The core driver of human existence, according to Nietzsche, is not the pursuit of peace or happiness, but the will to power. This concept is frequently misunderstood as a toxic desire to ruthlessly dominate or oppress other people for personal gain. In reality, the will to power is the fundamental biological drive to overcome your own weaknesses, master your environment, and actualize your highest potential. It is the raw ambition that pushes an athlete to train through the pain, or an entrepreneur to build something from nothing. When you suppress this natural drive to be polite or politically correct, you essentially castrate your own life force. You have to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question today. Who actually wrote the moral rulebook you are currently following? Nietzsche argued that society is heavily infected with slave morality, a system that praises weakness, humility, and victimhood, while demonizing strength, ambition, and success. We see this today when people are celebrated simply for their grievances, while those who actually strive for excellence are often attacked and torn down. Breaking free from this toxic mindset requires you to develop master morality, where you define your own values based on what makes you stronger, not what makes you popular. You must stop apologizing for wanting to be exceptional in a world that aggressively rewards mediocrity.
The ultimate antidote to the herd is the concept of the Ubermensch, often translated as the Superman or the Overman. The Overman is not a comic book hero with superpowers, but a psychological ideal, a person who has completely overcome their human weaknesses to create their own values. This individual looks at the chaotic, meaningless void of the modern world and boldly decides to become the meaning themselves. Achieving this state means you no longer look to politicians, influencers, or society to tell you what is right, wrong, or acceptable. You take absolute, terrifying responsibility for your own existence and sculpt your life as if it were a magnificent piece of art. One of the most powerful weapons in Nietzsche's philosophical arsenal is the concept of Amor Fati, which translates to the love of one's fate. This goes far beyond merely accepting the bad things that happen to you with a stoic, indifferent shrug of the shoulders. Amor Fati is the radical, almost crazy choice to actively love every single aspect of your life, including the heartbreak, the failures, and the betrayals. It means looking at the absolute worst moments of your past and realizing they were the exact ingredients required to build the person you are today. When you truly love your fate, nothing can ever defeat you, because you view every tragedy as necessary fuel for your evolution.
Nietzsche famously suffered from severe health issues, intense migraines, and crippling loneliness throughout his entire life. Yet he didn't see his suffering as a curse. He saw it as the ultimate psychological alchemy that could turn pain into profound wisdom. In our modern culture, we immediately medicate, numb, or run away from any sign of emotional pain or discomfort. But Nietzsche argued that great pain is the ultimate liberator of the human spirit, stripping away our illusions and forcing us to grow stronger. If you want to achieve anything of real value in this world, you have to learn how to suffer well and use it as a tool. We have all heard his most famous quote, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." However, this isn't just a catchy motivational slogan to post on Instagram after a bad breakup or a tough day at work. It is a profound psychological truth, requiring you to actively extract the lesson and the strength from your trauma, rather than just surviving it. If a hardship doesn't kill you, it leaves a scar that can either harden into permanent bitterness or transform into incredible resilience. The choice is entirely yours. You can let your past traumas define you as a victim or use them as heavy weights to build your psychological muscles.
In one of his most famous metaphors, Nietzsche describes the human spirit as a camel that must eventually transform into a lion. The camel takes on all the heavy burdens, rules, and expectations of society, the "thou shalt" commands that tell us exactly how to live. To achieve true freedom, the spirit must become a fierce lion, ready to slay the great dragon whose scales are covered in the words, "thou shalt." This represents the violent, necessary act of rejecting the expectations of your parents, your culture, and your religion. You have to destroy the inherited rules of the past before you have the empty space required to create your own future. You must be warned that the path of the Overman is incredibly lonely, and the air at the top of the mountain is extremely thin. When you stop agreeing with the herd and start living by your own radical values, people will misunderstand you, judge you, and likely abandon you. The modern world does not actually like free thinkers. It prefers predictable, obedient consumers who do not challenge the status quo. You have to develop an immense psychological tolerance for being disliked and walking entirely alone for long stretches of time. But this profound solitude is the necessary price of admission for genuine greatness and unshakable self-respect.
We have built a modern society that is incredibly safe, padded, and completely devoid of real, visceral danger. But human beings are apex predators, and when we are stripped of our dangerous edge, we become anxious, depressed, and deeply neurotic. Nietzsche challenges us to live dangerously, to build our cities on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, and to send our ships into uncharted seas. You need to take massive, calculated risks in your career, your relationships, and your personal goals to feel truly alive. Stop playing it safe to guarantee a peaceful death, and start taking the bold actions that guarantee a legendary life. Ultimately, you are tasked with the massive responsibility of becoming the supreme author of your own life and forging your own values. Once you have slain the dragon of society's expectations, you must transform from the destructive lion into the creative child. This means approaching life with a sense of play, innocence, and boundless creativity, building a reality that is entirely your own. You become your own god, setting the standards by which you clearly measure your own success, morality, and purpose. It is a terrifying level of freedom, but it is the only way to ensure your life is an original masterpiece, rather than a cheap copy.
To truly test if you are living correctly, Nietzsche presents his most terrifying thought experiment, the eternal return. Imagine a demon tells you that you will have to live your exact life over and over again for all eternity, with every pain, joy, and mundane moment repeating perfectly. Would you fall to the ground in absolute despair, or would you consider it a divine, beautiful blessing? If the thought of living your current life on repeat terrifies you, it is a massive wake-up call that you need to change your trajectory immediately. Embrace the struggle, overcome the herd, and live so boldly that you would gladly welcome the chance to do it all over again forever.